Don't worry. I use a clipboard during my presentations because I'm a writer and not a memorizer. So what I thought we'd do today is I'll talk a little bit about my books, and then I'll talk about the difficulty I had writing about a stand-up comedian, because I am not a stand-up comedian. And then comes the side-splitting portion of the program. I'll take some questions, and then if anybody's left, we'll have cake and I'll sign some books. So one more thing. This isn't a library, and Gina said we could be as loud as we wanted. So when I count to 3, I want everybody to scream as loud as they can. 1, 2. I would like to be invited back. Well, as my young son ably said, my first book was Diamonds for the Dead. You know those guys? Are they coming over? All right, come on, there's seats.
And there's cake.
And there's cake.
Uh-oh, if somebody sits in front of me, I'm in trouble.
Diamonds for the Dead was my first book. It takes place here in Reston. It's about a guy, Josh Handelman, who comes home to bury his father and discovers all kinds of secrets, including a Russian Jew living in the basement and a missing diamond collection. And I'm thrilled to say that it was fortunate enough to be nominated for an Agatha Award. It's a finalist. Best First Novel category, and we'll find out its fate on April 30th. The book you're all here to hear about is Killer Routine, and it's the first in the Last Laugh mystery series. So this is the beginning of a series. It too takes place in Northern Virginia, Reston, and so on. And it's about a stand-up comedian who has, as my son said, a tragic past. Before the book starts, the protagonist is called Channing Hayes. And he's been in a terrible automobile accident, which has left him with some physical scars as well as some emotional scars. And he claimed the life of his fiancée as well. So the book opens with Channing, who's now a mentor to his fiancée's sister, who's also a comic. And then, I don't want to give too much away, she goes missing, and it's up to Channing to find her, and there's some dead bodies involved, and eventually we'll find out who the murderer is. One more thing. This is set. Who's familiar with Jam and Java in Vienna? Okay. The comedy club that I used as my comedy club as the setting here is based on Jam and Java. So it's on Maple Avenue in Vienna. It's in a little strip mall. It's, not the most successful establishment around, and it's co-owned by Channing Hayes, protagonist, and this old Borscht comic, Artie Worsham. And so the series will follow their adventures. Why did I decide to write about a stand-up comedian? Fair question. I was never the class clown. I was always the guy who sat in the back, the last row of the classroom, doing crossword puzzles with, half listening to the lecturer. And I always liked it that way. I'm sort of a don't speak until spoken to kind of guy. But I've always loved a good laugh. And I remember, I guess my first exposure was, I was probably 15 years old, and we were at the Catskills. I know, cliche. And I snuck into the Midnight Comedy Show. And I remember laughing so hard I heard a comic called Joey Villa. Who's heard of Joey Villa? You haven't. So, part of the digression, I saw Joey Villa, his name on a placard in Las Vegas about 10 years ago, which was, I guess he graduated from the Borscht Belt to Las Vegas. But I remember laughing so hard, and part of it was because anytime he said anything remotely funny, I thought it was hilarious. I was 15. But I do admire the guts of stand-up of comics. But I think there's a fine line between comedy and tragedy. If you look at some of the famous comedians, Lenny Bruce, or Sam Kinison, or Richard Pryor, they've all had various flare-ups or flame-outs. In Richard Pryor's case, it was literally a flame-out. So I thought that would be really interesting material to mine, sort of the mother lode, that I could have a serious mystery and suspense on one hand, and yet sort of have an excuse to include some humor. So that's what I'm going for. These books are really, they're not super funny books. They're mostly suspense and mystery. But there's, it takes place in a comedy club, so there's a fair share of humor. Now, in writing this book, as I said, there's some humorous spots, but most of it is in conversations and in situations. But there were a couple instances where I had to actually write my character. I wanted him on stage doing a routine. Okay, so I figured, all right, well, how hard could that be? Well, I sat down to work on it, and it's really hard. And I'm thinking, why is it so difficult? And it sort of struck me that if you think about stand-up comic, it's in the timing, it's in the delivery style, it's in the attitude. And that doesn't come out on the page. So I really had my work cut out for me. To illustrate that, I've taken I've transcribed a short bit from a famous comedian. I'm going to read it here. And about halfway through, there's some couple clues that hopefully you'll figure out who it is. After you hear those clues, I bet you'll imagine this person and you'll kind of see his delivery style. I bet the bit seems a lot funnier. So you be the judge. This is not my bit, this is someone. How many people have cats? Let me ask you this. Do you trust them? Because I've got to get a pair of cat handcuffs, and I've got to get them right away. Just the little ones that go around the little front paws. Or maybe the manacles that get all four paws. I got one person. It's an easy job. What a drag. I found out my cat was embezzling from me. You think you know a cat for 10 years and he pulls something like this. Found out while I was away, he'd go out to the mailbox, pick up the checks, take them down to the bank and cash them, disguised as me. He had the little kitty arrow through the head, blue, and the little kitty bunny ears, another clue. And I wouldn't have caught him, but I went outside to it. Whoa, tough crowd.
Sorry, I just came with the group and I just took a seat.
More here.